I remember that I was super jet lagged, and I got there, and I flew into the capital first, and then I went to Cochabamba, and I just thought like, man, this is not America anymore. This was my first experience outside of the United States, and so I thought, man, these people are living in little mud huts. Like, this is gonna be awesome. This is gonna be so cool. So I just remember that, and then we went and we knocked doors. I was the only one. My group had gotten there later, and so I'd gotten there before them, and so we went and knocked doors, and we were like 0 for 20, I think. Like it was just horrible. And I thought, man, this is gonna be hard. And sure enough, it was in the richer part of the town, where not a lot of people wanted to listen anyways. Not a lot of people were home. But it was kind of like, this is the real stuff. But every time I was so excited. It didn't matter how tired I was. Didn't matter how much or how little of Spanish that I knew. I was just so excited to keep going and knocking more doors and to kind of share the gospel with them. And I didn't know what to say, but my companion that I was with really helped me out. And so that was the first experience I had. And I remember the very first time where I met a member family. It was who fed us, who was in charge of feeding us. And they had like this concrete table. And I thought, man, they're sacrificing so much just so we can be here. And once again, just the love that I felt from them, and they would be willing to do anything. They'd go with us to lessons, and that was my very first taste of them. And it was amazing because they were just so happy all the time. They didn't have much. They had a little TV that they would watch sometimes, and they just had each other. And it was amazing to see that they could kind of make it through with as little as they had. So it was cool to see kind of the first experience. But they do speak different dialects there. They speak Aymara and Quechua, and so I learned a little bit of Quechua. It's kind of like you learn how to say hello, how are you, where do you live, and then basically you bring a member the next time so you can go and actually teach what they're saying. Not a lot of people speak it outside of Bolivia and Peru, but that is pretty unique. Also, there is a part of the mission that's at 14,000 feet above sea level. So that was really cool. I got to end my mission there, and I loved it, even though I was super exhausted all the time because like I got winded like walking up 2 stairs. But it was good, and it was really fun just to kind of be in a whole different environment. So that was really unique, as being so high on, you're kind of on top of the world. As far as church growth, now in Bolivia, back in, I believe they just celebrated their 50th anniversary of having the church in Bolivia. And actually the very first chapel that was built in Bolivia is in the mission. It's pretty cool. I never got to see it, but I did get to hear the stories, and it's kind of a miracle that they had the post, kind of the middle beam that was supposed to be put in. Then they went to put it in, it was too short. And so they were thinking like, oh no, we got to ship another beam out here. So they prayed, and the next day they came back and the beam fit perfectly. So it was a little miracle that happened there, so they could have the first church building. But the church is growing very much so. Now in the main city of Cochabamba, there was 5 stakes when I left, and they were hoping to open up a 6th. I believe there's 2 other stakes in the mission, and then a district. So the church is definitely growing. Within the last 50 years, you can see that people are definitely starting to accept it. The members are getting stronger. They're kind of now 2nd, 3rd generation members instead of just the first. So that was pretty cool. And I just remember hearing experiences about, because my mission president was one of the very first missionaries to be there in Bolivia from Argentina, and he shared some of the experiences that he had of when he first saw it. And he was there, and the town was called Carissa, where the first chapel was, and so he said just it's so amazing to see how much it's growing. Religiously, I would say the majority are Catholic. They don't really know what that means. If you ask them what they believe in, they just say it's because my mom was Catholic or my dad was Catholic and I was baptized. So they believe in Christ, and I think most of them recite like Our Father and things like that. They definitely know that there's someone out there that's looking over them, the majority of the people. Talking to them about Christ isn't a new idea, but the new idea is kind of the restored gospel, and that's pretty cool. Church attendance is pretty good. The wards that I was in, it's not great. Everything starts about a half hour late, but besides that, it's good. You can probably get 60 to 70 on average in each ward, which, I mean, it's not great, but it's an improvement for only having the church there for 50 years. And there's one temple in Bolivia, and it's in Cochabamba. It's beautiful. It's right by the mission home, and I mean, every chance you get to go up to the temple, even to be on the grounds, and to go through it with an investigator, with a convert, or maybe a family that is just working to get sealed. Going out there to the temple grounds is super special, and they've actually got a big crisis statue that is up on top of the hill. And actually one of his hands is pointing towards the temple, ironically enough. I don't think it was planned, but it was pretty cool to see that they understood who Christ was, and they had that kind of symbol for them to remember each time that Christ was always looking there. And it's fun to hike up there. It's pretty hard if you walk up it, but it kind of, our path as members of the church and what we have to do return to Heavenly Father's presence. So Cochabamba's climate is actually quite pleasant. They call it the eternal spring because it never gets below 70 during the day and doesn't get much above 90. So it's quite pleasant. During the rainy season, which is about November to March or April, there's lots of rain. And when it rains, it rains. It's not just a little sprinkle. It's going to rain a lot. And so it's nice though, because it doesn't get too hot, it doesn't get too cold. Now, if you go to Potosi, which is at 14,000 feet, then it gets pretty cold. You get into about 20 degrees at night with not much insulation, so you want to bring an extra sleeping bag or an extra blanket when you're there. And so it's pretty cold, and you'll get some snow, not a ton. And if it snows, it melts right away just because it gets super hot during the day. It's a pretty safe place, especially for me because I'm kind of a bigger white person. People wouldn't like to come close to me that wanted anything, but as long as you're walking where it's lit, and different areas, they'll have members will tell you the things that you should do and things that you shouldn't do. And as long as you listen to them and really listen to the Spirit, that if you're in a good place and you're doing what you need to do, you're pretty safe most of the time. I never had any experience where anyone wanted to do anything to us and to me, or to steal anything off of me, and then so it was quite nice. It was pleasant to know that people wanted you to be there. So transportation, your feet are your two best friends. You walk and you walk and you walk. There is public transportation. They're called Troofies. It's like a little auto bus, and it's packed full sometimes, and it's empty at times. And basically, it's just as many people as can fit on the bus. That's how much they'll take, and you just give them a little coin, and you go. That's the best way to get around, the cheapest way. There's taxis all over the place. You'll learn that there's no rules on the road. I never had to drive on my mission, but just seeing people drive, I considered it a miracle every time that I got in a taxi and I came out alive. So that was pretty fun. But it was good. I loved just kind of seeing a different way of doing it, because here everyone has their own car, but there they pretty much rely on the public transportation, and had to learn of what line takes me where and what's the quickest point from A to B, and a lot of times you just spend it walking. So it's pretty cool. And then also from traveling from city to city, you travel on what's called a flota. It's a big bus, and they travel on dirt roads. So what would take normally here in the United States of a 90-mile ride takes probably like 4 hours just to get through, just because they're riding on a dirt road. And so it takes a while, but it's a good time because it's the cheapest way of transportation for them intercity. And so it's pretty cool to kind of see that and just to get a new perspective of it all. And there's actually a pretty dangerous road in Bolivia. It's not in the Cochabamba Mission, but it's like the most dangerous road in the world. And it's basically just carved right out of the mountain, and it's big enough for like 1.5 cars, but it's a two-way road. And so as you're going up, you kind of just have to give way to whoever's bigger. And then at times that causes one tire to go off the edge, and basically you just hope that it makes it. I never had the opportunity of traveling that road, thankfully. But that is one thing that Bolivia does offer, is the world's dangerous road. The currency is the Boliviano, and it's 7 Bolivianos for $1. So it's actually getting better. But yeah, that's the currency there. Everything's relatively cheap there. So there in the markets, you can kind of get everything you need. And I had kind of both ends of the spectrum. I had one where it was beautiful. It was a 2-room apartment, nice gas-powered shower. which sounds like no-brainer, but normally the showers are an electrical head that comes out with the wires like right next to where the water runs. And so it's actually kind of scary as you shower, but normally it's fine. You put it for Bolivian people, which the average height's like 5'6", and I'm 6'2", so you kind of had to shower with your head bent over, and so that was kind of interesting. But so I had an apartment that it was super nice. We lived nice. We had a nice kitchen, and then one where it was just this room that was probably about 12 feet by 15 feet. And that was where we studied, that was where we ate, that was where we slept, that was where we changed, that was where we did everything. And so you kind of get both. Just depends on where you are in the mission. But they treat the missionaries fine. They're nice apartments. So the phrase that comes to mind is a peculiar people. That's definitely what Bolivia is. They're very unique in their way that they celebrate different. I mean, if they can find a way to celebrate something, they'll celebrate it. The biggest thing is Carnival in February. They just love to basically have a huge water fight for 2 days. So my recommendation is don't wear clothes that you don't want to get wet. Because even if it doesn't matter who you are, what you're doing, what you have in your hands, they will throw water balloons at you, they'll throw buckets of water. Sometimes it gets worse and it's like paint. Basically, they just like to have fun and enjoy that. Other cool holidays, the 6th of August is their Independence Day, and that day is very special to them, as is our Independence Day. They really enjoy just kind of being together with the family, and that's the biggest thing, is they love to be with their families. And so on a certain holiday, they'll have grandma and grandpa come from wherever they are and come with aunts and uncles and cousins and be there with the family there to celebrate and to enjoy that special time. But that's the biggest thing, and they're very accepting of having visitors on holidays, usually, if they know you. Proselyting on a new day, proselyting to new people on a holiday is probably not the best idea, but trying and visiting people that you already know on a holiday is actually quite a good idea, and something that I would recommend. Definitely they like soccer. Bolivia is not known for its great soccer teams, but they do love to play it and always out in the streets. But besides that, they just like to be with people. They like to converse. They like to work. They like to do different things. I mean, I wouldn't say there's a specific thing besides soccer is probably the number one. But besides that, just having a fun time, and they do like to celebrate. They like to party, which if you don't teach them correctly, then it involves alcohol and lots of drunk people in the street. You can't enjoy yourself. And as far as cultural do's and don'ts, they do like to greet you with a kiss. Just make sure that you keep it arm's distance away from the girls, because they'll sometimes forget that you're a missionary, or sometimes forget that you can't do that. And another thing is, try not to leave food on your plate. It's a big, or if people offer you food, like one time I remember we were fasting. It was Fast Sunday, and it was the Saturday night before, and we had this investigator who's about to be baptized the next week, and she made us this big plate of food. And one thing of Bolivia, if you reject someone's offer to feed you, that's it's pretty offensive. And so I just looked at my companion and said, okay, we're fasting tomorrow. Let's end this right now. So we ended our fast, and we ate the food just because we knew that she didn't know that we meant no harm in saying no to her food. And she was just offering the best that she had, and so we ate it instead. So one thing is, as much as you can, accept the things that they give you, because it is just out of love that they do it. They have rice with everything, just a plate of rice with potatoes. I would say the best food that I had, it's called pique macho, and it's like the stir fry with like hot dogs and French fries, and it's a little spicy, but it's perfect. It's so good. It's like the delicacy down there. And they've got a lot of traditional plates as well. One thing that I'll warn you of is chuño. It's potatoes, and you'll have to ask the first member that you meet how they make the potatoes. They're a little dry, and you'll learn why they're dry, but it's good if it's made the right way. Besides that, the members love to feed you. They will feed you over and over and over and over. Like, if you're done with your plate, I remember just like barely finishing, and as soon as I put the last scoop in my mouth, there was a new like plateful, and even if I wasn't hungry, there was just more food. And that's really how they show that they love you. And they love to give you drinks as well. You'll drink lots of Coca-Cola and lots of Pepsi. So the food's great. I loved it. It was good. Here's a spoiler. They prepare it by putting it out on a tarp, and then they stomp on it, and then they put it back in the freezer, and then they freeze it, and then they put it back out and sun dry it, and then they stomp on it some more just to get all of the liquids and water out of the potato, and then they freeze it again, and then they prepare it. So that's chunyo. It's like I said, it's done. If it's done well, it's pretty good. I love how humble they are. They really do want to change. They really want the best for their children, for themselves, for their families, and they're a very family-oriented people. It's family first and almost all the time. Now, you'll have families that don't fit that mold, but I really like how open they are to love you, how open they are to accept you into their homes. I also love how interested they are in learning about the outside world. Every time that they would know that or learn, I mean, it's pretty obvious that I'm from the United States. They would just ask questions about it. What it's like, what's the food like, what's New York City like, all these things that they see on TV, because that's all they get of it. They would just want to know more and more and more. And so they're very involved in and they want the best that they can have in this life. You find the Quechua-speaking people kind of in the foothills of the city. They're not there in the main part. They do work in the market sometimes, and most of them know Spanish and Quechua. And the most I learned of Quechua was that's what they used when they wanted to talk about me. They'd speak in Quechua, and they'd kind of yell at something to each other. So I don't know if it was something nice or like, that kid's really good looking or that kid's goofy looking. I don't know what they were saying, but it was mostly to communicate between themselves. I had to learn it for a little bit when I was in my last area, just because that was outside of Cochabamba in a different city, and there you do need it more because that little pueblo was originated by Quechua speakers. So kind of the older people, they only speak Quechua, and so I had to learn just the basics of how to say hello, how are you, in order to kind of communicate with them. So then we would go get a member that knew Quechua and Spanish, and if they wanted to learn about the gospel, then we would bring the member with us if they didn't speak any lick of Spanish. So, but most of them could understand Spanish for the most part. This is how I would say that my name's Elder Wright. So you say Noga Kani Elder Wright, and then how are you is my Pikasan Masiki. That's about all I knew, and as soon as you started talking about different things, I kind of lost it, but it was good. So there are a lot of Brazilians and Peruvians as well. They come to, mostly it's college-age students there to be in the university to study because it's cheaper there, and it's a good education. So they like to be there and to get that. The Brazilians love to speak their Portuguese, and they'll let you know that they're from Brazil for sure. But they're very nice people as well, and it's interesting to kind of learn from their culture and to see why they're there in Bolivia and why they're there in Cochabamba. But I didn't get to deal a lot with the Brazilians. I dealt more with the Peruvians, and it was cool to connect with them because it's so close to Bolivia that they would just come for work or for school or just to kind of have a different life just for a little bit.
Did the Brazilians ever get taught?
They did get taught a little bit, not a ton. It was kind of hard to locate them because if they were in the area because I was in the area where the university was, they didn't live there. They lived clear at the other end of the city, so kind of getting referrals. And at the same time, they're college students, so it's hard to locate them and to pinpoint them at a certain time. So I do know that there was a little bit of success, but mostly the most success that I had was working with the Bolivian people themselves. I had one Peruvian person that was very open to the gospel, but mostly it was among the Bolivian people. One thing that I did see is that there were a lot of single-parent households in Bolivia, and it gave us the opportunity to kind of talk to them about their experience. And some, I mean, the experiences they had were quite different. Some of them, their significant other or their husband or wife was was working outside of the country, others that they had passed away, or maybe that they had been divorced. But it was a great opportunity there to start talking about the gospel and how it could bless them in their lives. And that was the biggest thing. And one thing that I loved is how much they love to talk about the people that they love. Being able to know that they're going to be able to see that person again in the spirit world and in the celestial kingdom, hopefully. Being able to know that this isn't the end, that whatever decision that somebody has made in their family, whether it's a wayward child or maybe a parent who's struggling, that it's not the end. The atonement can kind of take part in their lives, and then they can be changed for the things that they've done. And just to see the kind of the beacon of light come into their lives at that time, and to know that their whole lives they've been told that they're not good enough, that socially and economically that they're never going to be at the level that they needed to be, to know that they were good enough for God at that time was just exactly what they needed to hear, and it was awesome to see that light enter into their lives. I never really thought twice about speaking Spanish on my mission, but then as I got there, I realized like this is the real deal. I got to communicate to these people in a different way, and so it was a struggle at first. I remember for the first couple of months, I was comfortable as long as we were talking about gospel-related things. But as soon as we started talking about jobs or hobbies, interest, or soccer, which is like what all my companions wanted to talk about, I was kind of lost. But I remember just keep trying to fight it and continue to learn it. The one thing that it took me a little bit to understand is that the double R, they can't roll their R's in Bolivia. So they take the double R sound and they turn it into a Z instead. So instead of how you say dog, instead of saying perro, they say peso. And so I would always think that they were saying an S or a Z there, and I was really confused. But it's just because they're a little bit of, I don't know, they just can't roll their R's, so they don't do it. They speak it a little differently, they speak slow. That's one blessing, is you don't have to worry about the quick Spanish. It's pretty slow, and they speak so you can understand it. One experience sticks out, and I think it was the reason why I was called to Bolivia. For the last 2 weeks of my mission president gave me the responsibility of going to this little pueblo that no missionaries had ever set foot in before. It was about an hour and a half away from the nearest church, and so we went, and it was the most amazing experience of my life. These people who had nothing were so accepting of these two tall white people that came in talking about God, talking about Jesus. And we went to this one home, and he talked about, it was Christmas time, and he talked about how us rich people, referring to us Americans, all we worry about is giving the best gift, the biggest car, the biggest house, the coolest gift, whatever it is, the newest thing. And he said, all we poor people, referring to himself and the people of this little pueblo, all we have to give is our love and of ourselves. And at that time, just the Book of Mormon came to my mind, and I said, we need to give this to him. So we gave him the Book of Mormon, and we said, here is our gift to you, that God loves you. And this is truly from us to you. This is nothing about the best gift, even though it was the best gift that we could give. And so as he took it, a tear came to his eye, and he went back and he got 4 pieces of bread. And for me and my companion, he gave us 4 pieces of bread. And he said, here, this is my Christmas gift to you. And so we walked away with 4 pieces of bread that to anyone else mean nothing, but to me it means the world. Because this man, who probably that was what his kids were going to eat the next day, he gave it to us instead. He gave it to 2 complete strangers who had no idea who we were, but he felt the love of God in this life. And so I took those 4 pieces of bread home, and it was the most cherished piece of bread that I have. And so what I learned, why I was called to Bolivia, is that I need to give more of myself. That whatever the Lord has blessed me with, it doesn't matter if it's 4 pieces of bread or everything that there is in this world. It's all from him. And it could be taken away from me at any time. And if I don't have my family next to me, and I don't have my testimony, I don't have the knowledge that I have, these experiences that I've had, then my life has been nothing. And that's what the gospel is that we need to really cherish the things that are most important. And that is the people that we're with. That is the families that we have. And truly the process that we're in of returning to our Heavenly Father. So learning that was a very neat experience, and I think that's why I was able to serve in Bolivia. So I remember one time we were walking in Potosi, and there it rains a lot during rainy season. And so we're just walking, and it was like perfectly sunny, at least with what we could see. And then we went into an appointment. We were probably in there for a good maybe 15 minutes, and then we walk out, and it's just black. And when the skies get black, that means the rain's coming right away. And so we were kind of far from our next appointment, so we decided to just stand under this little kind of roof that was hanging out, and so we stood there, and within like 10 minutes, the streets, there was probably at least 6 inches of water in the streets, just flooding. I mean, we had no way to get through, but just to walk through the water, it was insane. It was so much rain. I've never seen that much rain in so little time. And I mean, yeah, it was crazy. And then we just had to kind of take off our shoes and roll up our pants and walk back home because we were just soaked because the little shelter that we had wasn't sufficient enough for that. So I remember one time I was so hungry, just could not. I almost like had to stop and buy something, but we went to a member's house. And I think I prayed and said, Heavenly Father, please have her just give us some food. So she gave us some food, and she gave us this plate. And I was like, I'm so hungry. So I decided to just ate it. And I think within like a minute, it was gone. And my companion's sitting there, and he barely touched the plate. He was just like barely just like fighting through it. And I was like, that was good. And then so after we got out of the member's house, and he said, did you know what that was? And I said, no, it was good. And he's like, that was cow stomach. And I said, no, it wasn't. He's like, yeah, that was. And the same member gave us cow heart, which is actually not bad. I actually liked it. I ate llama. Llama is kind of like a jerky that they make, and it's actually really good. They give it to you with some cheese, and choclo. Choclo is like this corn that's like, the kernels are, I kid you not, they're like that big. I would say the most important lesson that I learned from serving my mission is hard work and managing my time. There was a lot of things to do. The Lord is hastening His work, and there was so many things that we could have done. And I remember countless times the adversary wasn't going to get us with the normal temptations that he gets with other people, but he knew that if we could waste our time doing less important things, then we wouldn't go see the people that were ready at that time. And so I realized that today, that's one thing that I just cherish so much, is how I manage my time personally. But I have a job that I have to go to. I have school. I have church responsibilities. I have other organizations that I'm involved with. And if I can't learn to manage my time, that's how Satan really is going to bring me down, is by filling my time with less important things so I don't get to the most important things. And so that was something that I cherish so much, is how to manage my time, and also just how to go out and do the hard things. I would say until that time in my life, I had never done such a hard thing in my life. That day after day, no matter how tired I was going to be, I'd have to go do it. And then I did it because I loved them. And that was the most important thing, that from the get-go, from when I learned that I was going to go to Bolivia, I knew that I was going to love these people, and I knew that they deserved my very best effort, because I had people here at home that my brother who's less active, and other people that need missionaries in their lives. I knew that I was that missionary to somebody else, and to know that I could come and bring that message to them, it was something that I could never be grateful enough for that opportunity that I had. One thing that took me a little bit to learn was all about the Lord's timing, both with my own conversion and with the conversion of the members and the investigators and people that I met. I remember one time that we were working with a less active member, and we were trying to get him and his wife and his 3 little girls to church. And he was coming back, and he was doing really well. And then all of a sudden he brings his nephew and his wife and his other nephew to church. And his other nephew had been super interested in the church, but wasn't baptized because of his parents. And so I remember they came to church once, and we asked who they were, and they said, that's Marco and Elsa. So we went and we talked to them, and we said, can we have a family home evening with you guys tonight? And they said, yeah, of course. So we went and we visited them, and we asked them what their story was. And Elsa told us this very sweet story of this time that they had actually taken the discussions or the lessons before. They were working with the missionaries for about 3 or 4 months, and they just didn't want it. She was Catholic, and she was a very strong Catholic. And then she got sick, and then she was on her deathbed, actually. Said she wasn't feeling well at all and close to going. And then she promised Heavenly Father, she said, if you can get me out of this and you can heal me, then I'll do whatever it takes. I'll follow you. And so sure enough, miraculously, she had the miracle. She was healed, and she didn't do anything. And so she kept living her life, and then she had a little 2-year-old boy, and he got super sick too. And so he was pretty sick, and so she said, Heavenly Father, if you can just get him better, like, I promise you this time I'll do whatever it takes. And sure enough, like, miraculously, he was healed. And so that happened like a couple weeks before we had visited him. So we came back, and she said, the time after he got healed, I just felt like I should come back to the Mormon church. So she went, and she said she went to the first time she went was a general conference, and she heard President Monson speak, and it just touched her heart. So we went and visited her, and she said, I don't know about you, Marco, her husband, but I'm ready to get baptized. I want to get baptized this Saturday. And so we were all like, no, this is crazy. Like, this is awesome. And so then it was Marco's turn to speak, and he said, I think this is good for our family. I too want to get baptized this Saturday. So we were smiles to both ears. And then it was Brian's turn. Brian is Marco's little brother and the other nephew that wanted to get baptized. And he could tell he had something that he wanted to say, and so he just kind of perked up his head, and he said, guess what? My dad said I can get baptized too. And we said, no way, that's so awesome. So we worked so hard for that week. We made sure that they understood all of the lessons, all of the commandments, and we baptized them. And it was the most amazing spiritual experience that his dad was able to be there, and he bore a testimony that was so sweet and so powerful. And then I remember that was about a year into my mission, and so I felt like they were going to be a strong family, be able to go to the temple. And I remember right before I was coming home from my mission, I got a phone call from her, and she was crying, and she said, Marco left. And I said, what are you talking about? She said, he just left. He just went to Brazil, and he said he's not coming back, and he's just going to leave me with our little boy, and he's mine to deal with. And I was frustrated. I was so mad at him. I wanted to call him up and go find him and say, what are you doing? Like, this isn't you. And so I kind of left with a bad taste in my mouth. It was pretty ugly of kind of what was going on. So she went to live with her parents, and she still would go to church. And then one of my companions actually, a couple of months ago, sent me an email, and he said, do you remember these people? And he sent me a picture. And it was Marcos, and it was Elsa, and they were together. And I said, yeah, well, of course. And I thought he maybe just like got an old picture of mine. He said that he actually had taken that the day before, and then Marcos came back. And then he said that he felt the Spirit there in Brazil and knew that he needed to be back for his family. And then he was going to do everything that it took to work, to be sealed in the temple and to have that testimony. And so the Lord's timetable is something that's so true. And it took me a long time to learn that. And I still maybe don't know it perfectly today, but I know that for them, for Marcos and Elsa, that's what they needed, that they needed those experiences. And at the time, as frustrated as I was, and even I'm sure as frustrated as the missionaries were before we taught them, they needed every step to be there. So it made me realize that every fruit that I had in my mission was not something that I would see. And everything that I did maybe wasn't going to have someone be baptized at that time, but it was a step in the right direction. If you've been called to the Bolivia Cochabamba Mission, consider yourself blessed for this opportunity that you have to be among some of the greatest people that you'll ever meet. My biggest tip is to give your best self. This time that you have to serve the Lord is something so precious. And these people are so great that they deserve nothing less but your best self. Don't ever worry about what's in it for you, because it's not about you. Just keep working hard and know that it's worth it in the end, that these people will love you for who you are, and give them who you are. Let them know who you really are. Let them know what your personality is. And as you do that, you'll be filled with that love for them to keep you motivated, to keep things going on. And I wish I had known that. I wish that I wouldn't have wasted the time thinking what's in it for me. But I know that because they love me, that I'm able to continue to work as they will need me to work.
First of all, I was super sad to leave Colombia because my MTC companion, well, I had two companions in the MTC. I had an American companion for 4 weeks, and she was also assigned to my mission. And then I had a Latin companion for the last 2 weeks, Hermana Ferduska. And I loved her so much, and she wasn't going to my mission, and she had a huge impact on my life. I was so surprised at how much I came to trust and love her. And seriously, saying goodbye to her was so sad. And so then when I was leaving Colombia, I was already kind of like, oh, I don't think I'm gonna have a companion that I love as much as her. She was such a tender mercy. And so leaving Colombia was hard. And when I got to Bolivia, I was a little nervous, but I was ready to try something new too. I remember I met my trainer in the mission house, and I didn't know that she was going to be a trainer. Like, she was just there randomly. And I remembered her because she had super, super curly hair. So I remembered her. And then when she got assigned to be my trainer, I was like, oh yeah, I met her. She has really curly hair. And she was funny. She's Bolivian. My trainer is Bolivian. And we had lunch at the mission home, and then we got assigned, and then I went to my area. My first area was right in the middle of Cochabamba, right in the middle of the city. There were a lot of people. We talked to a lot of people. My companion let me talk, which was interesting because I couldn't speak Spanish, but we met some new people, and I remember just being stunned by how good my companion could contact people. I remember she let me try, and then she did it, and I was like, oh my heavens, she's so cool. So yeah, those were my first impressions of Bolivia. In the Cochabamba Mission, we have a temple, which is awesome. It's right across the street from the mission home. If you serve in Cochabamba, you get to go to the temple once every 3 months, or you get to go to the temple every time that your convert is going for the first time, or if they're getting endowed or something like that. Every now and then we got to bring investigators to the temple. I don't know, that depends. I feel like President changes that sometimes with how often you're allowed to go to the temple with investigators. If you serve outside of Cochabamba, which is either in Sucre, Potosi, or Tupiza, you don't get to go to the temple until you get back to Cochabamba, or until you're leaving to go home. So there are like 4 main parts, I think, of my mission. I would say Cochabamba, which is definitely the biggest, and it has all these little provinces, or it has like the outside cities or areas. I don't know how to say that. Anyways, and then there's Sucre and Potosi and Tupiza. And Tupiza is the farthest away. There's part of it, and it's not actually, it's like the zona, it's the Tupiza zone that has other areas. I don't know, I never went out that far, so it goes all the way to Argentina. All the missionaries speak Spanish. I heard of one elder that got called to speak Quechua. Quechua is the most common native language there, and most missionaries pick up a little bit of Quechua depending on where they serve. So you can get around. There are some people that only speak Quechua, that don't speak Spanish. Cholitas, they definitely speak Quechua, but the Cholitas in Cochabamba usually speak Spanish as well. The Cholitas in Sucre, there were more that only spoke Quechua. The church has been in Bolivia for 50 years. Well, we just celebrated the 50th year anniversary. I know that the church started in Carissa. The first missionaries came to Carissa. The church started there. Elder Scott opened up the mission. He was a mission president down there, and they decided to open up like the Bolivian part of it. And so they took some missionaries out there, and they served a lot. They built a church. Well, most people in Bolivia are Catholic. And so a lot of people have the general idea, and it's because they were born with this, that you go to church once a year or for weddings and stuff like that, and that other times it's maybe not as important, or some people think that it's important but that God will forgive them because there just really is never enough time to do anything. And those are some beliefs. Well, there are plenty of different churches. There's a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses there, but more Catholics than anything. When I first got there, I feel like we almost got, like a few transfers after me, we almost got like half sisters and half, well, maybe not half, but there was a lot of sisters. There were always more elders. And then we got to a point where there were a lot less sisters. And I'm not exactly sure at numbers because I didn't really pay attention to things like that. Well, sometimes we did times where we studied a certain thing together. Like we studied a talk about being a consecrated missionary. And so for a while in my mission, for several months, it was like how to be a consecrated missionary, how to consecrate all of yourself to the mission, like how to not be disobedient, to not do all this stuff. That was my favorite thing that we ever had. I loved that talk. I still want to read it even though I'm home. But yeah, anyways, that was my favorite theme. I remember one time we read Preach My Gospel together, which was also a really great experience. We read, I think it's called True and Without Guile in English, I'm not sure. It was a general conference talk about being really good, actually, to people. I don't know. So we do things like that every now and then. But being a consecrated missionary was my favorite topic that we ever had, by far. We taught a lot of people how to pray. And even if they knew how to pray, they usually didn't pray how we pray in our church. It was interesting. Every now and then, a lot of the times we would just ask people if they knew how to pray, and then we just let them pray. And sometimes they would pray like we pray. And we were like, wait. And that's when we found out that their parents had been less active when they were younger, and they still prayed like we do, which was kind of cool. I had 2 American mission presidents. They were both really different. They're both awesome. They have different strengths. President Dyer is super loving. President Hansen is I know President Hansen more. I think he's an awesome mission president in every sense of the word. Him and his wife. Oh, I love Sister Hansen. Yeah. And we have the same name, so that was even better. Bolivia is divided up into departments, like what we think of as states. And so in the Bolivia Cochabamba Mission, there are 3 different states, right? And so in Cochabamba, there are a lot of different areas because it's like Cochabamba is one city, and then there's like Sacaba is a different city, and Quillacollo is a different city, and there are a bunch of different places. And in Sucre, it's like another state, but the capital, Sucre is the city of the state anyways, but it's the only place that missionaries go in that state. And so, and then Potosi and Tupiza are part of the same state. And so I served in Sucre and Cochabamba, in several different areas in Cochabamba. I love Sucre. It's nicknamed the White City. It's really small. You can get to know Sucre really fast. And it has the insane asylum in Bolivia, so people always say that you're gonna go crazy if you go to Sucre, or that's where the crazy people go. It's just a nickname. My area in Sucre was on the outskirts of Sucre, so it was all dirt with a lot of cholitas. But Sucre is the tourist place to go in Bolivia because it was the first capital of Bolivia. So it's the colonial capital still. And it was really cool. It's a little bit colder than Cochabamba, but it's awesome. The weather in Cochabamba is almost perfect. And so they still kind of have seasons. They still have a place where they say is winter. It isn't winter. I don't know. I'm from Idaho. Sorry. And I felt like it was more like summer. So it gets a little bit cold at nighttime in that time of year, but it doesn't get cold. So it's nicknamed the Eternal Spring. It's nice. I wore short sleeves all the time. During that time that everyone says is winter, I brought a sweater with me for the evening when it got a little bit chilly. When I lived in Sucre, I used my coat sometimes. I wasn't there in the time that is the winter for Sucre. I'm not exactly sure how cold it gets. It still gets hot during the day. That's the thing is even if it's cold in the evening, almost always it's hot during the day. And it's not too hot either. It's nice. Bolivian food is potatoes and chicken and rice. Potatoes, chicken, rice. Potatoes, chicken, rice. Every day. And then they give you some beef. That's part of their diet for sure. But never without potatoes or rice or some kind of noodles. Those are the basics. And if you go to Sucre, which is part of the Cochabamba Mission, they will make everything with ají, which is chili powder, I think. I'm not exactly sure. I don't think I ever have had that in any thing in the US, only in Bolivia. But yeah. Favorite foods. I don't know, there are a lot of good things. I really like sopa de mani, which is this soup that's like, it's like peanut soup. I don't even know how to describe it. They blend peanuts up and they make a soup around it, and it's really yummy. I really enjoyed it every time we had it. The Spanish in Bolivia has a lot of Quechua mixed into it, and so a lot of the things that we say, like huasca and stuff like that, are from our words in Quechua and not in Spanish. And the other thing that's a little bit hard about Bolivia is that a lot of the people that even speak Spanish there, either their native language is Quechua and they learn Spanish like in school and stuff, so it's their second language, or like their parents speak Quechua, or their parents or their grandparents, I don't know, they all come from someone that speaks Quechua, and so maybe the grammar isn't that awesome and stuff like that, but they're awesome people. If you get called to speak Spanish, learn Spanish, teach in Spanish. You'll learn Quechua if you need to. Don't worry about it. I love Bolivia, and some things about Bolivia like are frustrating. Like some things about America are frustrating too. I love how kind the people are and how loving they are. Like everyone always will give you hugs and kisses, and they'll tell you how pretty you are, and they'll just express so much gratitude, like, oh, thank you so much for coming here, we love you guys. They're really nice. The members there are really kind. I grew really close with a lot of the members, especially the less active members. They usually, like, it's a little bit hard for them maybe to, first of all, it's a little bit hard to like be on time for things. So getting investigators to church before the sacrament is a little difficult, but I think it's like that in most missions. They're super kind. I love them. And it's not hard to love Bolivians. They have such huge hearts. But it's really hard to say goodbye. Let me tell you, that's a hard thing. Because they really care. Yeah, they really care. Anyways. There are just awesome people that are such good examples to me. One of the biggest blessings of being a missionary is getting to feel the love that Heavenly Father has for His children. And so, yeah. Then you miss the people. I really do love Bolivia. They're awesome. The people there are awesome. It's awesome. Bolivia is awesome. In Bolivia, food is really, really, really important to them. Learn how to eat every single thing on your plate. Don't leave anything there. And learn how to be super happy with your food. Tell the people that make it for you thank you and how much you loved it, and you'll win their hearts. Because food is so important. And maybe like if you don't like food, like in general, like you're not easy to please, learn how to eat food so like it looks like you're super satisfied. Because that's like one of the most important things to them. So definitely eat all your food and love it, for real, love it. Because that's an expression of love to the people directly. And if you refuse to eat food, that they take it very, very personally. So don't ever refuse to eat food unless you're sick. Then yeah, you should not damage yourself either. Another thing is that when you enter a room and when you leave a room, you have to say goodbye or hi to every single person. So if you're a sister missionary, that means giving everyone in the room a kiss. Well, except for the guys, I guess. But and if you're an elder, like shaking their hands. I don't know. I'm not an elder, so I don't really know that kind of things. But when you're a sister missionary, you have to say hi and goodbye with a kiss. That's needed. And it's offensive if you don't. In Bolivia, they will find every excuse to have a holiday. They have holidays so often. I swear every other day was a holiday. They have all of these holidays that are like the no driving days where you can only walk. So like there are no cars on the road, which is really nice. I liked it. Or except for when it falls on on Sundays, it depends. If your area is small and you live close to a church, those days are awesome because people will still come to church. But if people have to drive to church, then that means your church attendance goes down. Well, they have a lot of holidays for different saints. Bolivia is definitely Catholic, mostly Catholic. And so they celebrate a lot of saints, days of saints. Carnival happens. Also, it's like a giant water fight. We weren't allowed to leave our house during 2 days because of that. We just had to stay inside. There are so many native people, cholitas, that's what they're called, that are in all of Bolivia. But in the city, everyone comes to sell. So along all the streets are all these little cholitas with their traditional clothes, with their skirts and their nice shirts with their big hats and their braids. And most of them are super sweet and not super interested in the gospel. Some of them are awesome investigators. But yeah, that's one thing, the culture in Bolivia, the cholitas. Another thing is everyone is super late. That's like, I was late today. I'm still trying to get back into like American time. Everyone was late. I remember that was one thing that bothered me so much when I first got to Bolivia. So my trainer was Bolivian. She did not think it was important at all to be on time for anything. And I was like, seriously, we were supposed to be at an appointment 30 minutes ago. What are you doing? And she'd just be taking her time. I remember at first that drove me crazy because I didn't understand, one, that that's the culture. And usually when you showed up on time, people weren't there. You had to wait for them anyways. Church starts a half an hour late. Well, actually, it depends on the area. But in some of my areas, it started late. Things start late. Always. Word activities 2 hours late. When I first got to Cochabamba, in my first area, I was in the middle of the city, and so there was some of every type of people. There were rich people as well as really poor people. And I remember I used to bawl to my companion and be like, they don't have anything. Or I remember walking out of lessons like with super, super humble people. There was this one lady who was awesome. She's like the happiest person I've ever met in my life, which is so interesting because she's had a very hard life, and on top of that now she's in a wheelchair and she lives in one room, and she has like she has 3 daughters, 2 of which live with her, that like she like practically can't work, and she has no way to help herself pretty much. She's like the happiest person I've ever met. It was such a humbling experience. Or seeing people live on the side of the street, or children that beg for money. Lots of parents make their children beg for money. And after being a missionary for a while in Bolivia, you kind of get used to all that stuff. But I remember the impact that it had to me, especially at the beginning of my mission. And then when I came back here and I realized that all that stuff doesn't actually happen in the U.S. But really, it's humbling. Heavenly Father still loves them. But their situation is hard for a lot of people. And it's sad. Learning to follow the Spirit is a great lesson to learn. I firmly believe that everyone comes with different gifts and different talents, and the Spirit speaks to different people in different ways. And so really that's a personal thing. I think the bottom line is that if you have an idea and it seems like it's in accordance with the gospel, act on it. Don't wait. I remember in my first area, a lot of the times I would be walking and I'd be like, you could talk to that person. And I'd be like, was that the Spirit or was it not the Spirit? And I was like, and then like 2 blocks later, yeah, we should maybe go talk to that person. My companion would be like, why didn't you just stop and talk to him when we were there? So yeah, I learned about that. Just act. When you have an impression, just act on it. And that's like when you know. Maybe you can tell, oh, maybe that was just my idea or that was the Spirit. Honestly, if you're just focused on doing what the Lord wants, doing your best, the Spirit will guide you. And it's different for every person, but He will guide you. Live the gospel. Read the Book of Mormon. I read Preach My Gospel before I went on a mission. I think it helped me, but definitely reading Preach My Gospel in my mission was more beneficial to me. But I mean, that could be a good thing, reading Preach My Gospel before. Look up A Consecrated Missionary by Tad R. Collister. I love that talk. We read it as a mission. It was awesome. Keep a journal. Get in the habit. So I served in an area called Cosmos, and it was like this. Like, seriously, sometimes we had to use our hands to get up some slopes because you just couldn't do it. Like, you just slip. Anyways, and so when I got to my area, I was like, this is cool. It's like hiking every day. I like to hike. Yeah, your legs hurt when you hike every day. But I remember that me and my first companion in that area, we would always talk about like when we were so tired from going up the hill and like the sun was, it was hot when you're going up the hill, I guess. And we had to go to an appointment and it takes you 10 minutes to climb up 3 streets and, or more than that, I don't know. Anyways. And we would always talk about, like, we just gotta keep going. If we keep going, we're gonna have such great husbands. They're gonna be so attractive. And we just talked about how attractive our husbands were gonna be because we had to climb the hill every single day. And then slowly that hill started to become a metaphor to me for the gospel. And I used it as we taught a lot of people about how the gospel of Jesus Christ is always moving upward and about how it's hard, but it's worth it. And so that hill came to mean a lot to me. And I liked climbing up there and like looking out over the rest of Cochabamba because you can see a lot of Cochabamba when you're at the top of our hill. So it became a metaphor about how we can like continue to grow and we make progress and we keep going. It's a steep journey, but it's awesome. Clothing. Just wear something that's comfortable. Everyone will think you're beautiful. Just so you know, everyone will think you're gorgeous. Just wear things that are comfortable. You might have to sit on the ground or on little tiny chairs. So definitely have a skirt that will cover your knees, like comfortably cover your knees. Because when you have to sit on the ground, it's, yeah, important. And same with shirts. Wear shirts that maybe can get a little dirty. And not in every area. You would need things that can get really dirty. But in a lot of areas, it's like all dirt. You'll have to wash your clothes by hand most of the time. There are some people that get the members to do it. Actually, now when I was leaving, they changed the price. So like the mission was paying for the missionaries to wash clothes more money than they were before. So maybe that's different now. When I was there, we had to wash a lot of clothes by hand. So wear clothes maybe that are easy to wash as well. Well, I just had one American companion, and I had 6 Latin companions. So I had 6 Latin companions and 1 American companion. I finished my mission with an American, and she's awesome. All of my companions were great. Have good shoes and learn how to cut your toenails right. Because you're going to be walking a lot and you'll have hills, usually. Almost, well, I don't know. I had 1 flat area. The rest of my areas had hills. So that's important. And I mean, there are buses and troofies and stuff like that. But you walk a lot. Troofies are like minivans that they turn into little buses. That everyone piles in. And they go on like a more, like a route that's like more in different streets. Like big buses usually go on just main streets. And troofies like go more into other places. They're just smaller, they're faster. It's better to take a troofy than a bus. It depends on your area. I mean, some areas only have troofies, they don't have buses. Pray for your companion. When you're alone and when you're praying with them too, pray for your companion. It will help. I don't know, it depends on the companion. Find ways to serve them in ways that they like. Some companions don't like the same service as other companions, so just be very conscious of them. Remember that they're your first priority. So in Bolivia, when you have to like wash your clothes by hand, it's nice to have a place to dry them. And I mean, in most areas, they have clotheslines outside, but in some areas, they don't. Or they have clotheslines outside, but that's where the dogs sleep. And then they get fleas all over your clothes. That's really gross. That's a terrible experience I wouldn't wish on anyone. Anyways, so I've seen like places, like there are these circle things that have a lot of different places to hang your clothes all at once. I don't know if you could find something like that. Or there was another missionary in my mission that had like a portable it like looked like a plunger, but it like washed your clothes for you. I don't know, it was really weird, but if you could find something like that, that's nice. I really don't like to wash my clothes by hand, can you tell? So that would be something good to bring. So when I was packing to go to Bolivia, and we know that it was a third world country, me and my mom were all worried that like we wouldn't be able to find like shampoo and stuff like that. So I brought a ton of shampoo, but lasted seriously my whole mission. Not necessary. Well, I mean, it was kind of nice. I had American shampoo my whole mission, but there you can definitely buy like basic things for sure. So you don't really have to worry about that kind of stuff. You can find most things in Bolivia. There are stores on every corner, like most basic things. I'm trying to think things that you can't find in Bolivia. Yeah, the makeup isn't very good down there. Just take enough makeup if you want to wear makeup. I mean, you get to a point in Bolivia where since everyone thinks you're so pretty, it's like I don't even need to wear makeup anymore. But seriously, they're just super kind. That's the thing about Bolivians, is they're just super kind. Oh, and please don't get offended if anyone calls you too fat or too skinny. That's just their culture. It's not a big deal. And don't take it personally. But definitely people will be calling you fat or skinny, so just get over that. Yeah. If you see a souvenir that you like, just buy it. How long are you going to be there for? I got home and I bought a ton of souvenirs, and then I got to a point where I was like, I don't think I really need anything else. I already have way too many. Now that I'm home, I'm like, I should have bought that. I would have liked that. So yeah. But I don't know, that's more like coming home. Don't think about that right now. Don't be too worried about, like at the first part I talked about parasites and stuff like that. I never had parasites. Well, there were missionaries that did have parasites, but they take care of them. Like, they know about that kind of stuff, so don't be worried. I served in safe areas. Bolivia is pretty safe. Well, Cochabamba is safer than the other missions in Bolivia. Like, people still get robbed and stuff, but I never got robbed. And I was in areas that were like red zoned, like the most dangerous parts, so nothing ever happened to me. Just don't stress too much about things in Bolivia. If you're late, it doesn't really matter. Well, I mean, you should still try and be punctual. You're still a missionary, and with some people it does matter. But mostly Bolivian culture is super, super laid back. They're super just chill people. In my first week of the mission, so the word for hair and horse is almost the same, cabello, caballo. And I remember I asked my trainer how to say hair, and she told me the word for horse. And so for the whole first week of my mission, I was saying horse for hair and hair for horse. So that was interesting. Another thing that everyone makes mistakes with maybe is the prepositions, when to say el and when to say la. Yep. There were some others that thought they were pretty funny. They kept trying to teach me that it should be things like la idioma and el mano and things that aren't right. I didn't like it when we had to eat liver, but cow heart wasn't bad. I actually really enjoyed that. One time, one of my pensionistas tried to feed us alligator. I just didn't eat it. I almost died when I saw my first chicken foot in soup. They put the feet of the chicken in the soup. And a lot of Latins like that because they like to suck on the bones. One time I got put in an area, we got put in a trio twice, we got kicked out of our house, our pensionista moved on us, and just a bunch of things happened. Like I was telling you before, having my companion in the MTC was awesome. That was a spiritual blessing. Also, there are so many different things. Like, for example, in my last area, a lot of things happened. My grandpa died. I almost went home right before he died because he was dying, and it was really hard. And it's such a wonderful thing to be able to feel the strengthening power of the atonement and to see what it can do in your own life as well as in other people's lives. It was also really cool. We had a less active member that completely turned her life around, and she's still working on the endure to the end thing, but it was cool to be part of things like that. Seeing the change in people's lives is awesome. I honestly feel like as a missionary, you have the opportunity to feel the Spirit every single day, and it's awesome to get to a lesson and to feel the Spirit speaking through you as you speak to people, not knowing what the heck you're supposed to say as you're listening to their crazy stories, and then having the Spirit take over and seeing that it touches their hearts. And it's interesting the way that the Lord works, and He shows His love for each of us individually. One of the greatest blessings I think that I received on my mission is learning about what it means to love people. There was one lady that I taught for a while. Her name was Rosario, and I remember at this time I had just started training, and then I got 2 really bad ingrown toenails. And so wear good shoes, please. That was terrible. And learn how to cut your toenails, right? Anyways, and I had to get them taken out, and I had 7 stitches in my toes, and I couldn't walk. And I remember in this time I was upset, which was also a cool experience because I got to feel the strengthening power of the atonement, especially in like some painful moments. But so I was training at the time, so I sent my daughter out with other people, with members to go and teach, and then a less active lady, the same lady that I was telling you about, Rosario, she came and stayed with me for the week, pretty much. She came over a lot, and the way that the Lord works, and we could have a lot of gospel discussions. And I remember when I left that lady, oh my heavens, it hurt so bad. I bawled when I left the area, and then I bawled again when I left my mission after saying goodbye to her. It's so cool to get to experience the love that Heavenly Father has for His children. I think that's one of the biggest blessings a missionary can receive, is being able to feel Heavenly Father's love for all of His children, especially the ones that are struggling. I learned more about the importance of being healthy and about how to get through difficult situations without giving up, and the rewards that come from difficult situations. My favorite area that I ever had, I remember the first transfer I was there, I was praying so hard that I could leave. It was hard. And after I left that area, after 4 transfers of being there, it was so hard. And that's such a good lesson to learn, that the most difficult things, when you really actually work through them, they turn into the most rewarding things, which is cool. I learned a lot about how to deal with questions, especially when they have to do with your testimony, how to overcome doubts and questions without, how to have questions without turning them into doubts. Maybe that's better said. Things like that. I don't know, there's so many things you learn as a missionary. If you have a funny companion, everything is funny. I was companions with Hermana Llanos from Argentina, and we laughed all day, every day. Everything was funny to us. I remember one time we had to do kiosks where we had a question, and as people walked by, we tried to get them to read the question and give them and take their reference or whatever. And she's so funny. We always had so much fun. And then we came back in the Trophy, and we only went like 3 blocks, and the people were like, "Why did you ride a Trophy for that short of time?" And it's like, and like, just saying it now, it's not even that funny, but we laughed for days. I don't know. We laughed about everything. And we always played slug bug and bingo. It was fun. I loved her. She was my companion for the longest time. It was like the transfer of 8 weeks when they changed the mission president, and then we were together 6 more weeks after that. And we laughed all the time. It's great to laugh. Learn to laugh. My mission president said that we should just keep reading our scriptures, saying our prayers, and always, one of my friends told me this. She said that always have your next temple trip planned. So whether you want to go every week and you have a set day, or like if you can't go every week, as long as you have the next temple trip planned, you'll always be going to the temple. There are so many things that happen every day, and there are so many little miracles that happen all the time. for example, we had a girl named Claudia that was getting baptized, and the day of her baptism, she was really upset because one of her friends didn't come to her baptism that she really wanted to come, who wasn't a member. And so she was really upset about that, to the point, I think, well, and like just getting baptized is a big deal. And so right before she went in, she was like, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can do this. And we were like, we need to pray. So we all got on our knees, and then the baptism went great. And she bore a really powerful testimony afterwards, and she was awesome. And really, there are so many great experiences. That's an example of the power of prayer. As a missionary, the prayer should be your biggest tool. Because this is missionary work, really isn't our work. It's not about us. It's about the will of the Lord. And so we constantly need to be asking him what he wants, and then doing what we can do, acting. Congratulations! The Bolivia Cochabamba Mission is the best mission in the whole world. It's a little bit different than some other missions. So maybe some of the things you've heard about missions don't exactly apply. I'm just kidding. You have a great privilege to be called as a missionary in this time. It is such an amazing experience. It's indescribable. You have to live it to know what it's like to be a missionary. If you're going right now or super soon, I don't know how long this video will be around, but President and Hermana Hansen are awesome. I love them so much, and if you listen to them and trust them, you can really tell that they are instruments in the hands of the Lord, tools in the hands of the Lord, and they will help you go closer to him. The mission is an awesome mission. It's big. You'll really grow to love Bolivia. But congratulations, you're really gonna love it.